right now. What we're going to talk about is something that is potentially one of the most infuriating things about this whole health and fitness, whatever you want to call this. The fact that you may potentially have to move away from your goals to actually achieve your goals. And what I mean by that is, say you have an aesthetic goal. You want to look a certain way. You want to look like, this Fitspo that you see online. You're like, yeah, I want to have big juicy delts. I want to have 20-inch arms. I want to have a huge chest, chiseled fucking abs. Or maybe it's a female, you're like, I want to have gigantic glutes, whatever it is. You see something, you're like, that's my ideal. That's what I want to move towards, right? But then the method that you go about achieving that actually takes you away before it takes you to, So say you want to build some muscle. You're going to have to accept that you are going to have to accumulate some, potentially, body fat along the way to actually achieve the musculature that you desire, And it's unfortunate with social media, especially with people that are in the kind of, my kind of age, where they're in the kind of 22 to 28 bracket. You just see the final product. You just see, oh, cool, they look a certain way. They're young. They're kind of the same age as me. Maybe you're looking at them as a 16, 18-year-old. You're kind of like, yeah, they're still in that kind of same rough age bracket, So you're looking at the end result, and you're looking at yourself going, what the fuck, I don't look anything like this. I'm going to have to look like them and slowly progress, Or maybe you want to get really, really fast progress, and you're like, but I still want to look like them the whole time, And you don't see what that person has gone through to actually achieve that physique. You haven't seen that they have, done this kind of bulk cut cycle numerous times where, they kind of moved away from that aesthetic physique, and then they kind of brought it back and got more aesthetically pleasing along the way. They went through this and they spent years accumulating muscle tissue. So you only see the end product, you don't see the journey, so it is kind of misleading when you look at Instagram, Facebook, whatever, YouTube, wherever it is that you look at for Fitspo, so you have to take that into account, that you as an individual, where you are right now, you potentially are going to have to move away from your goal to achieve your goal. You're probably going to have to get a little bit fatter if you want to achieve higher levels of muscle. It's unfortunately the truth. And while yes, you can stay lean and slowly gain muscle, you still have to be willing to gain a little bit of fat. And what I mean by that is, you shouldn't be obsessively tracking calories and obsessively keeping calories low so as to minimize fat gain, because that's actually what's going to hinder your muscle gain. Like if you say your maintenance is whatever, 3,000, and you're going, yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to add a little bit so I can gain some muscle but not gain fat, and we generally say, roughly 300 is a good place to be. And we've articles on that. If you look at the Living Lean series and whatever, like we have articles on this, how you should set up your plan, an overall structure of everything. So it is on the site if you want to look at what we suggest doing. But you go, okay, 300 calories is where I roughly would gain some little bit of body fat, but I would kind of be maximizing muscle gain to the best of my ability, and you go, I'm actually only going to do 200, I'm going to keep it even below that, so hopefully I don't gain any body fat whatsoever, so you're not willing to gain any body fat whatsoever. And this is where the problem occurs, because the 300 calories, just as an example, is the kind of minimum we're saying. Like, yes, you can do it with less, and that's not to say like, oh, these calories magically disappear. If it's 200, it's no bueno, and it's 300, it's perfect. That's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is, the fact that you are willing to gain some body fat ensures that you have enough calories to support the extra muscle that you're trying to build, So you have to be willing to gain that little bit of body fat, because that's going to elicit the adaptations that you want, or at least ensure that you are in a position to get the adaptations that you want. Because what happens when you're only on this like 200, 150 calorie surplus, you aren't maximizing your time in the gym. You don't have that extra boost in energy, that extra boost in strength. Like, yes, you might notice, oh, I got an extra rep. Whereas the person that's like, I'm going for the 300, maybe even they're going up to 500, they're going all out, and they're noticing, okay, cool, I got an extra 5 reps every single workout, my strength has gone up, boom, 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 every single workout, where you're kind of like, yeah, some weeks I make progress, some weeks, this week I did 12,000 steps that day, so I kind of negated my calorie surplus, so it's like you've much less room for error, the more precise you want to be. And yes, that can be perfectly fine if you have every single thing locked down, you know, and you're looking at it really, really big picture. You're looking at it as a 16-year-old, and you're going, by the time I'm 26, I want to weigh an extra 20 kilos. You know, like, you're willing to put in that slow grind, and you're consistent with that for the next 10 years. Perfect, cool. I'm actually so down with that. But what people are trying to do is not that. They're trying to go, oh, in 12 weeks, I want to be 5 kilos bigger, but I don't want to get a single, you know, millimeter of fat on my body. Oh, that's disgusting. No. So I'm going to keep my calories really, really low. By the end of the 12 weeks, they're like, yeah, I gained half a kilo. You know, like, this whole bulking stuff is shit. Like, oh, I can't gain muscle. And it's like, no, you can gain muscle. Like, you physically can. Like, yeah, maybe you're not going to be, you know, the next, I don't know, whoever your fitness idol is. Like, maybe you're not going to be that big or that muscly, but, or even that shredded, or whatever it is that you admire about those people, you know. So maybe you're not going to get there, but obviously you're never going to get there if you're not willing to move away from your goal for a second so that you can come back to your goal. So you have to take it as you're kind of taking one step back to take 3 steps forward, you know. So do look at the big picture, and do look at actually assessing what do you need to do to look like what you want to look like. Because for the majority of people, the people you admire, they have high levels of muscularity and they have low levels of body fat, you know. And those two things are counter in terms of how you actually achieve them. Like, you can't say, well, unless you're on drugs, you can't say, oh, I'm going to gain 20 kilos of muscle while I lose 20 kilos of fat. Like, it just doesn't happen. You're not going to stay the exact same weight, and your fat levels are up here, your muscle levels are down here, and you're not just going to go, boom, I'm going to meet in the middle, perfect, you know. So that just doesn't happen. Like, yes, it can happen to a certain degree in a beginner or someone who is coming back off a layoff from training, or if, as I said, you are on drugs. Like, yeah, it's perfectly possible. Like, you'll see people interview people for whatever fitness shows and stuff, and you'll be like, oh, how much weight did you lose? And these people are shredded, and they're like, oh, I gained 15 kilos. And you're like, man, like, how did you gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, you know? And that's unfortunate in the fitness industry, because as a beginner or whatever, you look at it and go, oh yeah, that's possible. Like, yeah, I can do that. And you're not realizing that they're on a fucking rake of drugs, you know? So you do have to keep that in mind, that you are going to have to go a little bit away from your goals to ultimately achieve your goals. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get way out of shape to get in shape. What I mean is, you have to be willing to accept a little bit of fat gain, whether that's 1% for you, 2%, 3%, 5% for you. Like, for the majority of people, it's not 20% extra body fat, you know? I'm not suggesting here that we just jump into 1,000 calorie surplus, gain excessive levels of body fat. What I'm suggesting is, you have to be willing to gain a little bit of body fat to ultimately get the level of muscularity you desire. And the same is true with people looking to be healthy and lean or whatever. So if you don't have the muscularity, if I could speak today, I don't know what's up. You know, if you could have, or if you had the muscularity to look a certain way, but your body fat is too high, like, you're going to have to cut body fat. But you also might be in the case where you just don't have the muscularity and your body fat is too high. So you may have to diet down, spend time away from gaining muscle, even though that's the thing you need to do the most. You have to spend some time dieting down so that you're at a more acceptable, or whatever you want to call it, range of body fat, so it's easier for you to actually gain muscle because you're more insulin sensitive, etc., you know. So you have to assess, where are you right now, where do you ultimately want to go, and what are the steps in between that. Because the vast majority of you're going to have to go away to come back to actually achieve your goals. For some, it's going to be, I have to be willing to gain a little bit of body fat. For some of you, it's going to have to be, I'm going to have to walk around and be a little too skinny for my liking to ultimately get where I want to go, you know? So do kind of assess that with your own training, your own diet, and ultimately who you admire and what you want to achieve, especially in this kind of aesthetic realm, because there is a lot of misdirection, and also social media doesn't really show the journey as much as it shows the final destination. So you do have to take that into account. You should be looking at you as an individual, what you aspire to be, what you admire, where you are, being realistic and honest with yourself, and then adjusting accordingly. Like, you can't have it all and you can't achieve it all at the one time. Like, there's a reason people specialize and then generalize. Because if you want to be a generalist, you know, as in like, oh yeah, I'm very lean, but I'm also very muscular, like that's a very general approach. You're not obsessively lean and you're not obsessively, you know, muscular, you know. So you have to be, if you want to be a generalist, you're going to have to spend time specializing down, whether it's I'm spending time specializing in fat loss here, getting as lean as I possibly can without being excessively lean, and then also the other side of it, spending some time actually building muscle so that you can actually have some muscle to showcase when you are that lean, you know. So you have to be willing to spend a little time perhaps going away from your goal to ultimately get to your goal.